Alright! Welcome to Rockstar! Now, just so you all know, we're gonna cover this topic as fast and as completely as we can. Just the way you like it. Thanks for watching!
Chapter 1. Big Brother is watching. Imagine, your every move is being watched, day and night. Even when you think you're alone, you can be sure someone is observing your actions, listening to every word you say, even tracking you through your cell phone, whether you're awake or asleep, at home or at school, with your family or your friends, along every sidewalk, and in every store, cameras point at you. The cameras in your home invade your bedroom and even your bathroom, and they never turn off, so the creepers and snoopers can watch, take notes, and report your actions to the authorities. Everything you do and say is judged. Who your friends are, what video games you play, how you get along with your parents and siblings, your movements, the expressions on your face. Everything is constantly scrutinized to determine if you're a good little citizen, or if you need to be taken away and tortured. There are no laws, but the government is in control of everything you do, in control of the entire population, and Big Brother is always watching. From the moment you're born, there's no escape from ever-present eyes and ears. There's nowhere safe to sneak away, for even a moment alone, ever. Privacy doesn't exist. You live every day, every hour, under the unblinking eyes of Big Brother. If the government doesn't like what they see, they come at night and take you. You want to complain about your teacher? You're gone. You like a TV show that authorities don't want you to watch? See you later. You sent an email to somebody that they don't like. Got bad news for you. No warning, no trial, no jury, no explanation. You're simply taken to a prison camp and forced to do hard labor for 5 to 25 years. Or worse, you're imprisoned in an underground cell for months, and you leave your little cell only when it's time for your daily interrogation and torture, before you're eventually killed. Kind of a downer, huh? This is the kind of world that the British writer George Orwell created in his classic sci-fi novel 1984. In his bleak vision of the future, the government is a tyranny. It has total control and absolute power over its citizens. Not to break out too many vocabulary words, but this type of vision of the future is called a dystopia, where things generally just suck. Most people live in fear of violence. Authorities abuse their power. Living conditions are pretty bad. Kind of like in 1984, where most apartment buildings smell like old cabbage. And there just isn't much hope for most people to succeed or be happy in their lives. It's kind of like the Hunger Games. In many ways, Winston Smith, the main character of 1984, is the inspiration for Katniss Everdeen and her struggles against the oppressive Capitol. The hidden cameras and microphones the Capitol uses to spy on people in the districts of the Hunger Games, and the brutal punishments handed down by the president, and the peacekeepers that are a part of the same tactics that, 60 years earlier, George Orwell imagined an all-powerful government would use to control its people. But instead of the Capitol and the president, Orwell created the Party, which was represented by a figure known only as Big Brother. And Orwell took it even further. Average citizens, whom he calls party members, have zero freedom. Everything they do should be something that benefits the party. Even everything they think. Have you heard the term thought police before? Yeah, that came from this book. One of Orwell's goals in 1984 was to imagine a government so invasive that controls its citizens so completely that it's inescapable, even in the people's minds. Not only is having an independent thought a crime, which is called thought crime throughout the novel, but party members are subjected to constant brainwashing tactics so that the party can more easily control their thoughts. The party goes so far as creating a new language called Newspeak to limit self-expression. And what's even scarier is that Newspeak sounds a lot like the abbreviated text messages we all send every day. After all, if people don't think for themselves and realize what a terrible setup this is, then they're much more likely to be good little citizens, obey, and not cause any trouble. Bottom line, being an individual is a big no-no, and if someone rebels, or is even suspected of having thoughts of rebelling just once, they're out. When Orwell published 1984 and 1949, the year the novel takes place was still 35 years away, so he had to imagine how technology would be used in the future. Today, it'd be something like imagining what things would be like in the year 2080. In 1949, television was fairly new, not even in color, and there were only 3 channels. From that emerging technology, Orwell imagined telescreens, huge TVs, kind of like today's 60-inch flat screens, that not only show TV programs, but transmit video of what the viewer is doing. If Orwell could imagine that kind of a thing, he probably wouldn't be surprised by some of the things that are actually happening right now. On June 8th, 2013, the 64th anniversary of 1984's original publication, news stations all over the country were in a frenzy over reports about the recent discovery that the United States National Security Agency was collecting massive amounts of information on U.S. citizens. Turns out that the government agency, which operates mostly in secret, has been gathering records of the cell phone and internet use of hundreds of millions of people, more than 1 out of every 3 people in this country. Sound a little familiar? Like a step towards the use of something like telescreens, maybe. This news brought 1984 to the forefront of American minds, as newscasters and politicians throughout the U.S. started using terms like Big Brother and Orwellian to describe the surveillance and snooping that the government was found to have been performing. For the next several days, people clamored for copies of 1984. On Amazon's online store alone, sales of Orwell's dystopian novel jumped more than 6,000%, from about 7,000 on the bestsellers list to as high as number 60. Maybe people felt that what George Orwell feared in 1949 might be jumping off the pages of science fiction and into reality. Perhaps they wanted to brush up on the potential dangers of such a thing happening. Kinda scary, right? Orwell had seen totalitarian government at work when the Nazi Party came in power in Germany, though the Nazis have been defeated by the time Orwell started writing 1984. The Soviet Union, a communist government that ruled Russia and much of Eastern Europe for almost 70 years, was on the rise. Fearing that cruel and oppressive governments might start popping up elsewhere, Orwell wrote 1984 largely as a warning against letting governments have too much power so tyranny could take hold. How do you think that went over with governments around the world? Not well. In fact, 1984 has been one of the most frequently banned books in history. Copies of it were burned in the Soviet Union, and being caught with the copy could result in arrest. It's even been banned by schools and libraries in the United States, and was banned entirely in China until just a few years ago. But why was it banned? Did real-life governments feel it hit a little too close to the mark? The Soviet Union and China didn't like the way it portrayed a government based on their communist system, and the American Library Association frowned upon 1984 because of its anti-government message. Were they afraid people might start thinking like Winston Smith and wonder if they could join the revolution to stick it to Big Brother? That's a question that you should ask yourself.
Well, alright! We hope you enjoyed that! You just finished the first chapter of the topic. Now, just so you know, there are 4 more chapters to go in this app, and it will only take you about 45 more minutes to complete, and you are totally done. Now check this out. The app also comes with about 15 pages of analysis and summary that you can download and use any way you need to. Here's what you gotta do. You gotta click the link below and go directly to the Apple App Store and download the full app. It's fast and easy to do. Thanks for watching, everybody.